Hi, everybody. I'm Daniel Goldin from Boswell Book Company, coming to you live from my kitchen. Not really thinking about what the wall's supposed to look like yet. Today is 4,052 of us being in business. And as I said yesterday, I don't want to repeat myself too often, but I can't say I don't think I ever expected this, maybe even at 3,900. I wouldn't have expected we would be doing this, but here we are in one of our series of Zoom events. When we put this together, one of the authors that we begged to host, and she deigned to say yes, was Erica Ruth Neubauer. And this is, of course, pales in comparison with all our other events. This is her debut novel, years in the making, Murder at the Mena House. And it is, I don't know if you follow the Boswell marketing trail, you will see that we have a number of people who fell in love with this book, both myself and Chris, my co-marketing person, and our mystery specialist, Anne McMahon, as well. And we had a wonderful interview with her on paper, and we thought, what an exciting thing to actually host it not quite in person. So maybe someday we'll have one of those as well. I want to welcome Erica Ruth Neubauer. Please.
Thank you, Daniel. Thanks for having me, even though all 3 of my events at your store got canceled.
It's true. Don't worry, we had 7 more in progress. So one of the things about Erica is she is a longtime reviewer. She was involved in a number of mystery programs, both in Milwaukee and outside Milwaukee. So we have been hosting a number of events with Erica in conversation with other mystery writers. So maybe we can count one of them, but no, we're gonna have a real party in the store eventually.
Someday.
So one of the things that I really love about this book is that it's kind of old-fashioned and contemporary. But before we get into that, I think it's time for you to do the elevator pitch.
Okay.
But if you were in an elevator, you wouldn't want anybody else to be in the elevator, so I have to come up with a better term for it. So go ahead, tell us a little about the book.
Okay, so the book is set in 1926 Egypt. My protagonist, Jane Wonderly, is traveling with her Aunt Millie, who is kind of an alcoholic and based on someone in my family. She has a run-in with a young socialite who's very unpleasant and gets accused of the murder. And so she has to uncover all the secrets of everyone else staying in the hotel in order to clear her own name.
So, very placey, very timey.
Very placey and timey.
What kind of research did you do for the book?
I did a ton of research. I knew that I wanted to set this in 1920s Egypt. My dad raised me on old black and white movies and Masterpiece Mystery and Agatha Christie. So I had really romantic ideas about what the 20s in Egypt were like. So when I sat down to write this, I did a ton of research. I actually found a lot of videos on YouTube, surprisingly, of Egypt in the 20s, which I thought was, I know. And I hunted down a bunch of books about Egypt during that time, and about specifically the hotel that I set it in. The Mena House is a real hotel. It really existed. It still exists. I stayed there. It's a beautiful hotel. But I hunted down some out-of-print books about the hotel as well.
Yeah, for some reason, there's nothing better than a hotel setting for both a mystery or a novel. I mean, I think we've had hotel displays in the store just because there's always some hotel that we're excited about. Both the grandeur, and there's a mystery about it because you're in this place and you don't really know what's going on. And so could be ghosts like at the Pfister.
Exactly. Are there ghosts at the Pfister?
I've been told. I haven't met any. But anytime someone's staying there, someone in the audience brings it up. So I'm willing to work with that and say yes.
Fair. All
right. How did you come up with, the thing that's so great about this, there's so many great things about this book. I'm a fan, but the thing about this book is it really zigs when so many people are zagging. And I was almost a little surprised just because so many of the friends that you have and the books that you've introduced to me are psychological suspense, action thrillers, like all these other genres, romance crossover. There's some romantic comedy element to this book. But you did what I see as a very traditional, old-fashioned mystery, albeit, I'm going to pronounce that wrong, with a contemporary heroine.
Yes.
You know, she's got contemporary sensibility about her. So tell me about the thought process. I know you were thinking about, but it was even a little more than just like, I like old mysteries. Tell me about your inspiration for why you did this, a little counter to what other people are doing.
I know exactly where I was and what I was doing when I was inspired to do it this way. I was sitting on my back porch with my best friend, Beth, who is in this room somewhere. And she and I were spending the day reading, probably with some adult beverages. And I was reading Ashley Weaver's Murder at the Brightwell. And I kept putting it down and saying to her, I want to write something like this, except in that 1920s Egypt setting. And because Ashley's is the same way. It's a very traditional historical, with the zigs and the zags, and with a little element of romance spiced through, but has more of a traditional or contemporary feel for the heroine. And much the same, there's a couple of romance writers that I really enjoy who write during Regency period, who also do really great, witty, fast dialogue that feels very contemporary. So that was also an inspiration.
Do you tell a little, just a couple more, just because we're going to do some shout outs to some books, and obviously Ashley's book, we got to shout out. First of all, she was a librarian at Greendale Public Library, I believe, before she turned to a life of mystery writing. Yeah. So, you know, props to the Milwaukeean. So tell just a little more about her book, so everyone runs out and buys that too.
Oh yeah, those are set in 1930s England.
Okay.
They also kind of move from place to place. Her protagonist is a wealthy socialite who is in a fairly unhappy, uncertain marriage, which I actually thought was a really interesting construct. That's kind of different from what a lot of other people are doing with a straight up romance. The person that she's in love with but battling with is her own husband. But they're really good. They're really good, you guys.
Yeah. One of the things that I wanted to talk about how you came up with the story. Good plot, great characters.
Thank you.
Where did they come from? What was the genesis of the story? Did someone come first? Did the story come first?
The characters absolutely came first. In fact, when Beth and I were sitting on the back porch reading, we started coming up with characters, and we were kind of rowdy, and my neighbor slammed all of her windows. She got really mad about it. We were having a good time. I definitely came up with characters first. Jane was for sure the first one that I came up with, and then Redvers, who was her love interest. I came up with him second, and I think Aunt Millie was right after that, and she is based on my grandma. Who was kind of a pot stirrer. Good old Grandma Lois. Yeah,
she kind of has you kind of see her. She's got an element of classic sitcom a little, secondary character. Yeah, you're sort of like, she's exhausting and yet intriguing.
Yes, which Grandma Lois was.
Yeah, that's right. Well, that's right. Oh, angels, we've had enough of them. Some of the other characters, one of the things I want to say, and also we should say that Jane is the heroine of the book, and she will be the continuing thread in the stories, because you've actually written the second one, haven't you?
And the third.
Oh my God.
So the second book is already turned in to the publisher. I've got back cover copy already. I'm just waiting for copy edits on the second book. And then book 3 is with my freelance editor, Zoe Quinton. Cool. I send it to first, and then she and I work together before I send it to the publisher. So yeah, book 3 is, I'm sure I'll have plenty of work to do on it, but it's written.
So what's so interesting to me about this is that you have a pre-editor editor.
I do.
Is that common nowadays in publishing?
I actually know quite a few people who do that. so I hired her when I first had my manuscript that I was thinking about sending out to agents.
Right. And that's more common, like to
That's more common. But we work so well together and we're really good friends. And I also want to support her small business. So I've continued to work with her just because I think she's got a great eye for developmental things.
Yeah. I bet the publishers love it that you're bringing her clean in her manuscript.
Yeah. When I turned in number 2, I had worked with her, like she had like pages and pages of notes and I did it all. But when I turned it into my editor, he had no revisions for me.
Oh my God.
I know! It was so great!
I want to talk about, one of the questions I asked you that I kind of love is I said, if there were characters in this book, because there's a lot of eccentric people, you know, that's effectively a locked room. It's a very large room, but it's, you know,
yeah, a locked room mystery, effectively, yeah.
So if you would take any of these characters and do a spin-off series, say you said, you're obviously a pretty fast writer, so you have one a year, and then Kensington comes to you and says, let's do 2 a year! And then before I pick up your brains when you, who would you do, who would be your spin-off series?
I actually really liked my vaudeville characters.
I do too. Yeah.
I think they would be they were just shady enough but fun enough that I think that they would be fun. And I actually really would like to bring them back in another book if the series continues.
Well, they're going to travel as much as Jane is. It seems likely. Their names are Charlie and Deanna Parks.
Yes.
And they have a vaudeville background. And what are they doing in Egypt exactly?
They're honeymooning, but he's a card sharp. So he's definitely running the tables because they would not be able to afford to stay at a place like the Mena House.
Yes.
Otherwise.
Schmancy.
Too
schmancy for the likes of them. If it's not, but that's a work expense, sort of.
Yeah, totally tax write-off.
Okay, so I need to talk a little about, I was thinking about other books and classic series, and then I asked you, we're gonna do a recommendation page, because Erica Ruth reads so much that we're gonna have a nice page where you can buy the book, of course. You can buy the book right now. We'll have recommendations, and then we're going to do an edited version of this video on it too, which you can share with other people. And the book is, if I didn't say, you got it in there, your registration. The book is on sale for the foreseeable future. So we'd love for you to buy it from us. Erica and I live 4 blocks apart.
I think it's
I've been able to surreptitiously drop off cartons of books, have her sign them, and then go pick them up. Equally, and she has a lovely porch, so they're all. I do not have a lovely porch, so if I ever write a book, I don't know who's going to be able to bring them to me without them being stolen. So, but I wanted to talk a little about Elizabeth Peters, because when people think of classic Egyptian mysteries, she's the person we think about. It's hard to believe, I was looking this up, 45 years old the series is.
Oh my gosh, I guess I didn't even know.
1975 was the first, the Crocodile on the Sandbank. Wow. And amazing. Now, you read them too, didn't you?
I don't think I read all of them, but I read quite a lot of them. Yeah. Her protagonist, Amelia Peabody, is really great.
Yeah.
Strong female protagonist.
Right. In a time when there weren't as many strong female protagonists. I mean, this was really different. And she also, she wrote under multiple names, different genres as well. And she's passed away now. But the thing that's different is that she was also a traveler, Amelia, but winds up staying in Egypt for the series.
Yes.
Whereas I don't believe Jane's going to stay in Egypt.
She is not. Book 2 is set in England. It's a Manor House mystery. Oh. And then book 3 is on a transatlantic cruise.
Oh. Did you do cruise research for number 3?
I did do cruise research, and I am all set on ever taking a cruise ever again. Don't need to do that.
Well, I think it's really important for us to talk about how bad the cruise was, because we're not going to be cruising for the foreseeable future.
No.
And I think people need to be talked out of this idea that they missed something.
They did not. I think maybe the cruises are better where you stop at different places. But I literally took the cruise that Jane would have taken, which was, it left from Southampton, England, and then just went straight to New York. And it was like 7 nights. And after like the 3rd night, I was like, I'm good. I could be done here with this.
Yeah.
Nowhere to go. And the median age was like 100. There was not a lot of,
Well, I don't mind that because I relate to the seniors. But
if it had been nicer, I would have been happy to play shuffleboard. But the boat did a lot of this.
Yeah.
And
But the thing is, like, don't they have ups? I mean, I can't go on a roller coaster anymore. How can they handle it?
I know.
But my parents did a couple of. They really liked Alaska cruises, so.
That sounds great.
Yeah, so maybe. One of the things I wanted to mention, I don't ask as many writerly questions as some people do, but I do love asking are you a planner or a pantser? Because I just think that's a very funny question. So, Erica, what are you?
I'm a pantser. I tried once to write an outline and it was awful and I hated it. I just like to sit down and figure out what happens next. So I like at the end of the day, at the end of a couple hours of writing, I'll usually maybe have an idea what happens the next day, so that when I come back to the keyboard, I have an idea of where I left off and what's going to happen. But other than that, like I don't have a big outline and I didn't even know who did it in the first book until like 2/3 of the way through. And I was like, oh, I think this person did it.
The thing about it is, though, I always worry that if you don't plan, I mean, I'm sure this happens to people who plan too. Don't you sometimes write yourself into a hole, and you have to be emotionally able to let go of some of the writing?
You do. You do have to be able to go back and like this, kill your darlings or kill off your favorite scenes and just let it go and change it.
Yeah. One day we'll have the lost papers of your work. We'll put together all the throwaway scenes, when you're, going in the Hall of Fame of something or other.
Right. Oh,
I just want to say something about pantsers and planners. I find it very funny because the pantser is actually the person writing kind of without pants.
Yeah.
Because they're like, I don't know what I'm doing. The pants might be over there. So I just wanted to say that. A little repartee and sparkling romance. You are a multi-genre lover. You are a fan of the romance.
Yes.
And there is definitely romance in this book. I'm actually a big fan of romantic comedies, which I'm really excited because they're in ascendance. Do you have a couple of romance writers that you would like that might be mystery adjacent, or you know what I mean, like crossover that you might do you have something that you would? I'm trying to look. Let's see. How about The Hating Game by Sally Thorne?
That book is, my best friend and I just call it the book. It's a contemporary romance set in the publishing industry. Have you not read that, Daniel?
No.
Daniel, get on it. That's a really great straight up romance.
I now circled it.
Okay. I don't read a lot of, when I read romance, I just read straight up. I usually read a lot of historical and Regency. So like Tessa Dare and Sarah McLean are my two favorite.
Now you may not know this, but one of my former booksellers, Jocelyn Kaler, actually writes Regency romances under a pseudonym. Now, I would be doing my due diligence if I told you what that pseudonym was, but I do not remember. So maybe someone will write to me in message and say, this is Jocelyn's name. They are all ebooks, as much of the romance world is.
It is.
But I just like to give her a little shout out. Maybe one day I'll say what it is. We always talked about maybe doing. She wrote a series of mysteries with Sharon Nagel, one of our other former booksellers, and they have two, third one on the way, and they are delightful. But I never did an event for the Regencies because they weren't. Because some print on demand, they do print editions, but I don't think we've done that with Jocelyn. Maybe I'll force their hand, something about that. A little about, so we've got Jane.
Yes.
We've got a rivalry with Anna Stanton.
Yeah.
What do you feel like a rivalry is very important to a mystery with a young woman protagonist? Because I feel like that isn't, or not a, how should one say, I guess or a male protagonist.
I didn't think of it that way at all. She
Oh.
was just somebody that I used to work for and really didn't like and wanted an excuse to kill in a book, Danielle.
So really, basically, are all the bad people in your book based on real people? Is this the truth? And are any of your relatives watching this?
I don't think they are. But maybe that might be true, Danielle. That might be a true thing.
Okay. I wanted to talk about the fact you've done a lot of things.
Yes.
You were in fact, I think when I first met you, you might have been working for a retailer at Mayfair. Yes.
Yes, I was.
For like an hour. And, but I've been told by you and other people that you were working towards your detective license.
Yes, I got it this week. It came by email. I got my private detective license this week.
And what's your plan for this? Is this really just for material?
It is. Well, it will be full material, which will be amazing. No, it's to have a job. I will be working for an agency in Oak Creek. It's owned by a woman. She has mostly women working for her, which is awesome.
Yeah.
It's slowed down a lot now with the coronavirus, obviously, but yeah, once things pick back up again, I'll be starting to take cases and do surveillance and do the whole thing.
Is it like, what kind of thing does a detective do? Is there a lot of like, when I'm flipping through the cable dial and I see that at 1 a.m, like cheaters, is that like, is there a lot of like, what are things? I mean, I'm not thinking that you're going into bust, drug deals or something,
No.
trying to bust or something like that. So what would be the kind of cases that you were doing? Maybe as a shout out, also, maybe some in the audience might hire you. But
right. Point.
So what would you
hire? So the agency takes a lot of different cases. It's a generalized detective agency. So she takes a lot of child abuse cases, child custody cases, a lot of infidelity cases, so cheating spouses. She also does some theft and fraud for different companies. Sometimes they do undercover work at businesses to see, if someone's embezzling or stealing stuff.
I can see a lot of material coming out of that.
Oh yeah, I think it's gonna dovetail nicely with writing, to be honest.
Very cool. I asked you to give me a couple of other books that you were really excited about. One thing I always, you introduced us to Susie Calkins, and she, who is a delight and so smart and knows her history backwards and forwards. And interestingly enough, she's also writing a series set in 1920s.
She is. We were going to do a cocktail tour before the coronavirus shut us down.
It'll come back. So her first book is Murder Knocks Twice.
Yes.
And it's set in a speakeasy in Chicago. And the second book is the second book still scheduled? So many books on the schedules have moved around.
Yeah, I believe hers is still scheduled for July, the second one. It's called Fate of a Flapper.
And it's the same protagonist?
Yes, Gina Ricci, same protagonist.
I haven't read it yet. I read the first book, but I haven't read the new book. Is she still in that speakeasy, or what's she doing now?
She is still in the speakeasy. I haven't gotten my hands on a copy of the second one yet. I know.
So here's the big question.
Yeah.
Are you guys working towards a crossover?
She and I kiddingly keep talking about writing a book together, but I'm not actually kidding. So if Susie's watching.
No. All I want as a teaser is I want you to put each other's heroines in books.
Oh, easy peasy. I can pull that off.
Okay.
She'd probably be up for it too. She's good like that.
Yeah. All right, cool. I know this is an odd thing, but I always go back to my favorite childhood series, which is Half Magic by Edward Eger and the 3 sequels, where 2 of the books are about the parents and 2 of the books are about the kids. And they all have magic. There's a coin in one, a lake, a magic lake in the other, a magic time garden, get the pun, and then magic toys in one of them. And in the second book and the fourth book, the 2 meet each other because, of course, the time garden, you go back and forth in time.
Of course.
And of course, it happens in the water because it's in the lake book. So that has been influential to me. So whenever I see anybody who's friends, I'm like, you should cross over your characters. So I'm also a big fan of, like, if you're not writing series, to have like a character in one book show up
in the next. Yeah.
Just makes me cry. with happiness. I wanted to talk about a few other authors that you really love.
Yes.
Let's see, what Tasha Alexander. You put in an Only to Deceive. We hosted Tasha a number of years ago, back when she's living in Chicago. I do not believe she lives in Chicago anymore.
She does not. She lives in Wyoming now.
But you visited her.
I do visit her.
Talk up her book a little.
That's a fantastic series. It's set in the late 1800s. I think actually the new ones are set in the early 1900s now. It's again a socialite. She's a widow. The first one, she's a widow and begins to suspect that her husband's best friend may have killed him. She's another just kick-ass protagonist, female protagonist. That's what I'm really drawn to, like really strong female protagonists.
Strong women. Yeah.
Yeah.
Very cool. Maybe one more, and then we're going to do some questions. And I have the first question from somebody who doesn't have sound. So, so a few of the things you mentioned. One thing you mentioned is that you like a little paranormal.
I do like a little paranormal.
You mentioned a couple of books by Simone St. James. Would you like to pick them up?
Yes, hers are fantastic. She has her new ones are the Broke Down Motel, and I think it's the Sundown Motel, and then the one before that was the
Islands for the Dead or something.
And Islands of the Dead is set in like the 1920s.
Oh.
So she has a whole group of them that are set in like the 20s, right after the First World War, but all have paranormal elements. Silence of the Dead was awesome because it was a woman who's pretending to be a nurse, shows up in a haunted, not an asylum, but it was a home for men who had shell shock, basically. But she's pretending to be a nurse, and the place is haunted. Simone St. James, if you like a little ghosty stuff, she does a really great job of making it believable. It's not cutesy or kitschy in any way.
Okay. One of the things, as an expert on these sort of things, what is exactly the difference? Where does paranormal stop and horror begin?
I don't know, because I don't read a lot of horror.
I really liked, and this is where it's like, I'm not exactly sure where it is, but I read Danielle Trussoni's Ancestor. I'm hoping we eventually do.
Finish that.
You what? Oh,
I just finished that yesterday.
Oh, this was not a setup. So did you enjoy it? I really liked it.
I did.
And she definitely, you could see it almost being paranormal, but she definitely sees herself as horror. She's partly because she does a horror column for the Times and things like that. We had oh my gosh, this has been such an exhausting, because we had like 120 great events that we canceled. And one of them was with Danielle, and we actually got the Horror Writers of America, Wisconsin chapter to co-sponsor, and they were gonna do some readings and stuff. So that's one what I really like to do virtually.
Yeah.
So let's get to questions. We're gonna, don't forget, we're gonna have all of Erica Ruth's recommendations on an Erica Ruth Neubauer page, which we'll link to on a future newsletter, and also we'll have something on the front page for a while about it. So our first question is from Margaret, who emailed to ask, how much time did you spend in Egypt? We know you went there, but could you talk about your experiences when you were there and how it relates to the settings of the book? Are the depictions true to your experience, and how much adapting of that did you have to do? Like, what kind of changes did you have to make?
Wow.
It's a 17-part question.
Wow. So I was there for probably 10 or 11 days, maybe more. I have no idea. It was less than 2 weeks, but it was quite a long trip. We did a guided tour, and we did the whole Nile cruise. Nobody was murdered. And we stopped at all the different sites. That was actually that was a great cruise. You know, you stopped a lot. And then afterwards, we left the tour and we stayed at the Mena House Hotel, which is where this is set. And we stayed there for, I think, 3 nights. And honestly, I had done so much research ahead of time that when I got back, I only had to change a couple of details about things that I had written, which was great. And my tour guide was fantastic. And he sat and like answered question after question about, what it was like in the 1920s. He's very knowledgeable, and I had pretty much done my research correctly. So I didn't have to change a whole lot. It was more just to check my research.
Right. Reconfirming your instincts about these
Correct.
Very nice. Very nice. And that got you to write, and so you had time to write 7 more books. So so I'm looking around to look at if we see any hands.
Any hands?
Any hands?
Don't be shy.
Oh, I'll give you, one of you can don't answer this because we have to, one of you can ask what Erica Ruth's writing ritual is. Let's come up with some other, what are the questions you get asked a lot? We're not going to answer them, but you get to answer it.
Am I going to ask my own question?
No, you're not. They're going to ask it. Nobody really cares where you write, whether you use a computer. I guess people know that at this point you don't. No, we still get that question. Look at that. I'm going to call on Jenny Chu.
All right.
Jenny, what question do you have tonight?
Okay, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, excellent. Well, my question is, where do you do your best writing? Do you write in one of those hip coffee shops in Bayview, or do you write at your kitchen table, or where do you like to write?
I do a little bit of both. I really like to, I have this room behind me is my reading room, but it's also my writing room. I have a chase in there that I like to sit on and write, which is really terrible for my posture. So I also do like to go sit in the hip coffee shops in Bayview and write, especially Collectivo is one of my favorite places to sit. So I really miss that option right now.
Yeah. I like that Collectivo. I bet it is a good book because there's a lot of weird little, in the one in Bayview in particular, because it's got the second floor, like you could really hide out.
Yeah, I really like sitting at there's like also that bar, that like countertop bar that you can sit and watch outside and watch people. I like to sit there.
Okay, great. I am going to, where did Tim go? Tim?
Hennessy?
He had yes, Tim Hennessy, the fine editor of award-winning Milwaukee Noir.
Oh, Milwaukee Noir.
You did not contribute to that because you're too sunshiny. I couldn't. I mean, it's a mystery, but I'm like, oh, dark and jaded. I don't know because I don't know.
I did contribute in that the cover is my photo.
Oh, how cool is that?
Yes.
How cool is that? An award-winning book with a photo from you can share in the award a little.
Exactly.
But I have been thinking about that. I'm like, could this been adapted to, like if this character, could she be in Milwaukee?
Well, I'm writing something right now that's a little much darker. Well, not much. It's spoofy, but it's darkly comic. That probably could have.
Not yet. You couldn't find me. You unclicked. Raise hand.
Carrie, I hear you.
Oh, I'm unmuted?
Yeah.
Sorry.
Yeah, hi.
Hi. Hi, Erica.
Hi, hon.
So, yes, I have a silly question for you.
I'm ready.
So when I was reading Murder at the Mena House, I was struck by how much coffee she drank. So when you were in Egypt, did you drink a lot of the coffee there?
I did. The problem is that like on that boat, they were feeding us like instant coffee.
It wasn't like Turkish coffee and
no. We finally talked to one of the guys that worked on the boat, and then he made us. He had like one of those little like metal pots and like heated up the real Turkish coffee. But like, yeah, no, day to day, like they were feeding us instant coffee. It was really bad.
What about at the hotel?
The hotel was really nice. The hotel had great coffee, like strong Egyptian coffee. Yeah.
Good. Are you drinking anything? You want to cheers? Cheers.
Oh, I finished my beer.
Oh.
Cheers.
I'll drink 2 for you.
Thank you.
Do we have another question?
I know you've had lots of jobs and lived lots of places. So why did you become a writer?
I have always wanted to write a novel. So I guess it was just a matter of me finding the right idea and the right characters for it to finally actually happen. Yeah, before this I had never really done creative writing before, but it had always been kind of in the back of my mind that it was something that I wanted to do. So yeah, I'm glad I finally got here.
Okay. I have a question from, I know you. From Larissa. Hi.
No, not Larissa, and I don't know how I got her name.
Oh, that's my publicist. I was wondering why it says Larissa.
I have no idea. My name's Stephanie.
That's Stephanie Gale. She writes a really lovely series also.
Anyway.
You have the publicist, the Kensington publicist, isn't that crazy? Oh, Stephanie. Yeah. Go ahead.
You talked about things you love.
Yeah.
Now I want you to talk about things you don't love. So I want you to tell me at least 2 tropes in mystery novels that you hate. It can be like serial killers or pet detectives, but give me 2 tropes that you don't like.
Oh, Stephanie Gale, I love you.
Yeah.
One of my biggest pet peeves, it makes me so angry that is when an author at the end of the book, you find out that the person who did it is the protagonist because they have dissociative identity disorder. It makes me
very
so
complex.
angry. What? It makes me so angry.
Good one.
Thank you. And also pet detectives. Come on, that's just not my thing.
I would like to say, how do you feel about serial killing pet detectives?
What? No, that's a hard pass.
Okay. Let's see who else we've got. Oh, Stephanie, tell us a little about your books.
Yeah, Stephanie, tell us about your series.
So I write a series about a gay chief of police in 1990s small town Connecticut. So in the beginning, he is in the closet and he's actually trying to solve a murder without sharing any evidence with his detectives because it will out him. And as the books progress, he opens up more both to his community and the people around him, and times change a little bit, but he's always a bit of a curmudgeon.
And they're fabulous.
Oh, cool. I can't wait to read it. I have to give a shout out for one of our local authors, David Peterson, who he has a gay detective series set in Wisconsin, and for the 2nd year in a row, he was nominated for a Lambda Literary Award.
Oh, nice.
So he'll be doing what seems to be more likely to be a virtual event sometime this summer.
Yeah.
You also did you also mentioned, speaking of, didn't you mention? Oh yeah, you did. Contemporary mystery. You mentioned in terms of LGBT characters, Kristen Lepianka's The Last Place You Look.
Oh,
you're the 3rd person to recommend that book to us. So.
Oh, that series is so good. I just finished the 4th one recently. It comes out July, maybe. That series is fantastic. Queer protagonist, a PI who the cases are really twisty. The characters are really great. I think she's putting out one of the best PI series right now.
And it takes place where?
Takes place in Ohio. I think it's in Columbus.
Okay, cool. I like a little. Oh, I believe we have another request from Tim, but maybe not from Carrie, but maybe, or maybe from
the whole Hennessy gang is here. Erica. Hi, Auntie Erica.
Hey, buddy. How are you, bud?
He just wanted to say hi.
Oh.
Thank you.
Let's see if we've got one more question. Tim, do you have anything to add?
Did you get to have any input on the cover of your book, and what kind of thought process went into it?
I did not get to have any input into the cover of that book. And I, to be honest, didn't love it when I first saw it, but it has for sure grown on me. I really like it now. Yeah, the covers are all up to marketing and sales. So.
I think you had mentioned you wanted a travel poster more like.
I did. I wanted something more like a travel poster.
I think it works. I think
it really pops.
It's just to hold the book in your hand. It's a good weight. It feels nice in your hand.
Yeah, the cover's really nice. It's one of those nice.
It feels very luxe.
Yeah.
Well, I guess that's a good transition. So I wanted to mention, Murder at the Mena House is available now. Wherever books are sold, as we say, but it is particularly sold as a signed copy at Boswell, where it is 20% off for the next couple of weeks. And we would suggest you buy it. And it makes a great Mother's Day gift. with that said, I wanted to thank Erica Ruth Neubauer. I wanted to thank Chris for being our tech guy. And I wanted to thank all of you for coming, because we wouldn't have a bookstore, virtual or otherwise, without you. And hope to see you at another event.
Thanks, everybody.
Yay!